Okay, it's about time to start. Welcome, everybody. We have about 231 participants on the line at this point and growing. Thank you so much for joining us today and hope to give you a little update on what we've been doing and where we've been with respect to our college. I'm so proud of you. As you notice, I'm sitting here with this mask on. That's because Justin's watching over my shoulder to make sure I don't do anything improper. But since he's staying in that other room, I'm going to take this thing off. And as many of you know, a situation where this is the first time in my life that I've worn a beard, and I never dreamed that I'd be having to shave or at least brush or comb my face. And so every time I take that thing off, I have to do that. So forgive me, and I hope you don't see me do that too many times, but I'd rather do that now than be a fuzzy dog. So anyway, it's a delight to have each of you with us. I don't know if you really know just how successful you've been in what we've done this year. We have faced a worldwide pandemic that has taken just the air out of the respective rooms, not only in our country and our state, but in the world. And for us to be able to respond as well as we did so quickly to some very trying circumstances and to help students the way you've helped them, I mean, it is an absolute credit to everybody on this campus and certainly to those that fill the faculty and student services roles, but really it takes everybody. And I'm just so pleased. I'm so proud. I got some numbers a little earlier that I'll share with you that illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. But I don't know about you, but it has been an interesting time, to say the least. It has been one that has been far different than what I ever thought it would be. And it has tried our souls, it's tried our patience, it's tried the ways in which we go about doing things. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that I think all of you can be quite proud of what you've done, and you'll see more of that as I share with you today. We've got a lot to cover in a short period of time, and so without taking too much more of your time, I'm going to wait for a few others to join us. We're at about 301 right now. And so it's a situation where I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to hear what we are doing today. Your time is precious. Your time is busy. I know it is, especially this time of year when we're working to do everything we can to get everybody in who wants to be in. And so we don't take this lightly to pull you away from what you're doing day in and day out. I will tell you at this point, we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot of things that, quite frankly, are still in uncharted water. I will tell you some things later on in the presentation that I am very pleased with. And one of those is how we're, adapting to returning to campus and doing the things that we're doing. I will tell you just as a preview, we had a meeting earlier today with the county health director, and at the same time I'm on a weekly call. I've got one tomorrow, as a matter of fact, with people to include the governor's people, Dr. Cohen and others, and with what we've been doing, what we've been sharing, for the most part, we've been doing very well. We did learn a couple of things today that we're going to modify a little bit, but the truth is they weren't as significant as you might think. So we're ahead of the game. We're doing well. And when I share with you some of the numbers today that I just received a little while ago, I think it's going to reinforce what I've said about how proud I am of what you've done and how you've done it consistently and consistently well. That's our challenge, and that's our process as we get into the day and get into the future, because as we look forward to the future, we've got to do things even more effectively than we did in the past. One of the things I've been excited about is the creativity that people have demonstrated, the innovation that people have demonstrated. And I'm telling you, I knew a little bit about electronic forms and signing this and that and doing the things I did, but even when we couldn't be here full time, I learned how to do that very well, and it really has enhanced our systems dramatically. We learned some things. We had to go back in and make sure that we were doing things properly, but the truth of the matter is we were. And so there's some things that have really been improved because of the challenges that we faced. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that we'll continue to learn, we'll continue to innovate, we'll continue to create as we go forward. Now, I'd be lying to you if I told you that we don't have challenges on the horizon. We do. And I will tell you specifically what those are as we go through this session today. But at the end of the day, I hope that you have a better understanding of, first of all, the importance you play, each and every one of you. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you work. I don't care what your role and responsibility would be. All of us have a very, very important role to play in this whole situation. So I think the more effectively we can do that and do it together, collectively, the better off we're all going to come out of this thing on the other end. And there will be another end. I mean, it's been as challenging as it is. There will be another end. We'll get through this too, and we're going to do quite well as time goes on. But it's going to take everyone with their heads and arms to the wheel, and we do the work that needs to be done. And it satisfies the needs of our students, of our community, and certainly for each other. And at the end of the day, we work with each other and for each other and our respective families and loved ones. And so it's very important that we continue to do those things as we go into the future, and we work effectively together to help charge as much as we can and develop as much as we can the future for not only ourselves, but the people that we serve. And you play an incredibly important role in this community. I think you'll pick up on one of the elements in one of the videos that we have for you today that indicates that, and that it's more than just the Fayetteville Tech community. It's the Fayetteville community and Cumberland County community, and yes, even the state and the nation in terms of the impact that you have. So that's a very important thing to consider as we go forward. And I'm going to take just a moment and be quiet. We have 357 people on the Zoom call right now and in the webinar. So I'm going to take a moment and step away. And I'd like to show you our State of the College video for 2020. You have every right in the world to be extraordinarily proud of what you have done. And that at the end of that video, I'm going to tell you what you actually did. And I'm going to tell you that some of the projections when all this stuff first hit us is that we were going to fall through the pit in terms of graduation, in terms of success, and in terms of awarding of credentials to students simply because they were afraid. They couldn't come in, they couldn't do what we're normally used to doing. And your abilities to overcome that were just phenomenal. And I'll share those with you. And those are hot off the press as we go. So I'm going to mute myself and stop my video. And here is the college's state-of-the-art video for 2020.
At Fayetteville Technical Community College, we're used to meeting challenging situations head-on. We're used to finding ways to overcome obstacles. FTCC is strong because of the determination and the creativity of our students, our faculty, and our staff in pursuit of educational excellence and success. This year's highlights included significant updates to our baseball stadium to help expand our athletics program and enrollment. We broke ground on a new EMS and fire training facility in cooperation with Cumberland County. FTCC is also installing new simulation labs for our nursing programs and making enhancements to our Cybersecurity Center of Academic Excellence. As always, we provided our students with top-notch job training and college educations to help them pursue their dreams. There were obstacles along the way. Some of us faced difficult personal hardships and forged through. We're all stronger for their efforts and examples.
What I did in the military was I was a 92 Romeo, that's a parachute rigger. I started out in the 82nd Airborne Division as a heavy drop parachute rigger. Then I moved over to the Advanced Airborne School, and then from there went to the United States Army Parachute Team Golden Knights. We were working on going up to 45,000 feet in wingsuits. So we were going to set world records for distance, altitude, and time. During that test jump, I didn't slow down enough. The parachute came out and bounced off of my tail wing. So I was just kind of flat spinning, looking down at the ground until I finally got enough speed to where I could control myself. When I slipped off to the side, parachute caught air and it stood me up and it hit. We go through rigorous amounts of safety training so that you don't lose your cool and solve the problem. I had my appointment at the VA, and it really was just pure dumb luck that the representatives for Otterbach were there that day. And my doctor referred me to them, and they came up and asked me, hey, when you're done with your appointment, would you mind coming over here and checking out this new set of legs that we have? We've looked at your file, and you look like you'd be a good candidate for something like this. You don't really know what what you have until you don't have it anymore. You go from walking around and doing your regular thing to now you're in a wheelchair. It was years of physical therapy to get me to this point. I went through, as far as my obstacles here at school, I went through the entire welding course, and I did that all in my wheelchair. My instructors worked with me a lot on that. They made a custom desk for me, welding table, so that I could work pretty much like everybody else. The school gave me a personal assistant, and she operates the back half of the machine while I operate the front half of the machines. I got lucky. I survived, so I'm constantly on the go. I don't let the grass grow under my feet, not by any stretch.
I'm declaring a state of emergency in response to COVID-19.
In March, the world threw us a curveball. Faced with the global pandemic of COVID-19, we had to react quickly to a rapidly changing situation while keeping our entire campus community safe. It was time to lean on our collective skills and knowledge that makes us Trojan strong.
One of the ways we adapted is that we had to move quickly. We had the opportunity to continue to facilitate our students in the classroom setting, but online. And so we got together as a faculty and our staff members, and the dean came up with how we could build content and online for what are really traditionally face-to-face lab type courses. To make the rapid change, it was very challenging. Our 6 programs here at Fayetteville Tech Cosmetology are all designed 100% to be face-to-face. And so to be able to move all the course content online and to set it up in a manner that we could demonstrate practical applications to students, and then we could in turn view and to evaluate what they were doing in their personalized home settings. We also made sure that we had the courses built with enough content that our visual learners would be able to still receive the information and absorb it and learn it, and so that we could transfer the information in a quality manner. The obstacles that my staff and myself had to overcome to keep the students engaged is to have interesting quality content in our Blackboard courses. We had to build content that we would typically be able to demonstrate in a face-to-face setting in a lab environment. And to do that, we utilized resources such as the video content that's offered by our curriculum providers, and we also filmed demonstrations of ourselves, and so that we could transfer the information to the student. To be able to reintroduce our students to the environment and following CDC guidelines, face coverings are required. The cleaning of all of our rooms and labs in and out is required, and as well as all of our programs have traditionally required the use of strict guidelines from our licensing agency, State Board of Cosmetic Arts, utilizing EPA disinfectants like barbicide, and we use many measures to make sure that our students are safe.
Our ability to serve the community through our students was fully on display with our foundation.
FTCC Foundation is the fundraising arm of the college. So what we do is we raise money to support student scholarships, book funds, funds for programs and services that support the mission of the college. But when COVID-19 hit, we had greater need than we ever have before. And so we very quickly tried to help our students. They would come to us and say that they lost their job, their spouse lost their job, they needed to put food on the table. So we were able to help them through the funds that we have to help pay car payments, pay their rent, pay for groceries, help them with that emergency need and get them taken care of as quickly as possible. Because of that, we depleted our funds. And so we reached out to the FTCC family and the community and our board members, and we launched the Trojan Strong campaign, also in conjunction with Giving Tuesday, which is a worldwide campaign for philanthropy. And we were so overwhelmed with the response. We had almost 200 donors come back to us and give generously. I think they really wanted something that they could do during this very difficult time to help our students and feel really good about it. So we were able to raise money to continue to help our students and keep them in school and keep them on track with their studies, and so that they can graduate and go out and have successful careers.
So I was sick again for about 3 weeks, right around when classes let out, and almost immediately, not just me being sick, I have a 3-year-old son who now can't go to daycare because we don't want to spread that around. And so my wife now has to stay home from work, and very quickly after she had the decision to stay home from work, her job was actually suspended and she ended up losing it. Trying to make those ends meet became difficult, and very luckily I have a relationship with the school foundation here as one of the ambassadors, so I was able, I became aware of the foundation's help that they were offering to students. And so I was able to submit an application, and very quickly the foundation was able to offer me and my family support. They gave us $500 to go spend at grocery store, and that fed us for almost an entire month, which I can very honestly say that if we had not gotten that help, it would have been not paying for a car and instead paying for food. And the foundation and FTCC made sure that we didn't have to make that choice. My family wasn't put into that position. The school does genuinely care. The community part of community college here matters. And so to see how strong that was here, to see how closely tied to not just the community of students, but the city of Fayetteville this institution was both surprising, amazing, and then in this case, almost life-saving.
What we've learned through the first part of 2020 is that the FTCC family can rise to any challenge. Our students, faculty, and staff have done an exemplary job of proving they can overcome obstacles, planned or otherwise. Impossible is a word in the dictionary, but not in our vocabulary. We have all done our part and will continue to do so going forward into the future. I hope you enjoyed that short snippet of so many things that we have done. I think when you stop and take a look at where we were and where you're able to help a paratrooper who was injured with such severe injuries, and we had caring people that helped build desks that accommodated his learning and really helped continue to open the futures for him. I think it's just a beautiful method by which we can in turn go about doing the work that we do day in and day out. I think secondly, to provide assistance to him in the way that we did, it was critically important to his success. When you take a look, and I was so impressed, I wish you could have seen the entire presentation in the cosmetology department. They actually sent this forward to where this was a part of their test to the licensing agency, and the entire department went through and demonstrated their different hair techniques and the different things that they did. It was really creative, it was innovative, and it was very well received. when you really stop and take a look at what Sandy has done with Sandy Ammons, I think she'd been here every bit of 2 or 3 weeks whenever this thing hit. And so you talk about being baptized by fire, both she and Catherine Pritchard, who came a little bit before her. You know, they both have been baptized by fire in terms of dealing with a worldwide pandemic and its impact on us individually, but they've stepped up to the plate and they've done exceptionally well. When you stop and take a look at the young man who is the ambassador, and he's the one that made the statement that it's not just the FTCC community, it's the community in our name that really matters, because that extends well beyond our borders at the colleges and college centers, but it goes well into our communities, both in Fayetteville and Cumberland County proper. And so you've got a lot to be proud of as we go through this process, and you see the things and you understand the things that you've done. And as we go into what I'm going to provide for you in terms of some of our prepared remarks here, I want you to understand that from me, from our Board of Trustees, and certainly from each of us, that we really appreciate the extra effort that you took under very, very difficult circumstances. If you've been following the news worldwide, no one knew about this thing. No one knew how to deal with it. No one knew how to overcome it, and we still don't. This is a process whereby we're learning as we go. I jokingly refer to this as building the plane in midair, and in a lot of ways, that's exactly what we're doing. Now, there are some things that we can do to, I think, remediate or to slow down the spread and ultimately get us back to whatever that new normal is. And I was so pleased to see in the latter part of that video, that's what we're doing. You saw them masked, you saw them separated, you saw the cleaning protocols, you heard the cleaning protocols. We had a meeting earlier this morning with Dr. Jennifer Green, who is the head of the Cumberland County Health Department. And when we relayed to her what we were doing, and I asked a question specifically toward the end of that. She's doing a great job, by the way. But when I asked a question, how do we stack up? How are we doing? And the feedback I got was that we're doing very well. Now, we did take a couple of things that we learned from her today that will modify to some degree what we're doing to some in some essence. But the truth of the matter is we're doing very, very well, and we've been very aggressive from the very beginning. You really stop and consider this thing. This thing first showed its ugly face in about mid to late, actually early January. And everybody thought it was one of those foreign things that would never come, would never affect us. Well, obviously it did. And then we started planning for it here at the college in February. And so in March, you know the rest of the story, in March, April, May, June, July, and now into August, about 7 or 8 months have gone by where we have had to respond to something we've never had to respond to before. And so I couldn't be more pleased with the efficacy and with the, if not enthusiasm, and I think really it was enthusiasm, that people had to adapt and adjust. And as you see some of the things that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, you will see exactly what I'm talking about as we move into my PowerPoint. I'm going to try not to do death by PowerPoint, but by the same token, you need to see what you have accomplished. I think that's one of the grandest opportunities that we can provide, because so many of us get so busy at what we do day in and day out. And sometimes we get into the battles that we have, whether it's at family or whether it's here at the college or wherever it might be, that we lose sight of the accomplishments that we have been engaged in. Not one person doing them alone. That's not ever what I'll mean. But I'll tell you, it's one of those things that we have got to understand that we matter. And we matter immensely. We may be the only hope to so many of these people, some of whom you saw on this video a short while ago. And that's who we are. And that's what we do. And that's what we're going to continue to do well into the future. And regardless of whether we face a pandemic or whether we face this situation or that, we've faced them before, we've overcome them, and we'll do so again. We're going to continue on with a high expectation of the future and do the things that we need to do. So without further ado, I want to go to the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll tell you what you've been up to this year. Well, today is August 13th, 2020, and this is the fall convocation. It's certainly a lot different than what we've done before. I've always enjoyed giving you the presentation of where we've been and where we're headed. I'm going to be very honest with you in terms of where we're headed and some of these things. But the truth is, you need to know. And the battle is not over. We're still in the midst of it, but I think we have a way to overcome and do the work that needs to be done if we just continue on together and collaborate in the way that we have done so in the past. So the convocation, I really do regret that I can't give you any good food after the convocation. You're going to have to listen to me today and then go home and eat. But one of these days we're going to get back to, we're going to have a big party after this, and hopefully that comes sooner as opposed to later. There are a number of people that that we need to identify here in memory. People invest their lives in this college and the people we serve. And some of the people you're going to see today fall into that category in spades. I mean, they have dedicated themselves. They've done exemplary work in so many different ways. And one of those is Rex Perry. Rex, you know, was near and dear to my heart. He started in 2006. That was a year before I got here. And he was the student activities coordinator and coach. And unfortunately, he passed on 2019. But I'll never forget Rex Perry, because when Rex was part-time, he was Johnny on the spot. Anywhere you wanted to see him, whether he was doing open gym and so forth, and he wouldn't let those guys get anything over on him. He did a great job. You see his $1 million smile there. That was always the way he was. Now, Rex had some physical problems, as you know, and he fought those valiantly. And whenever he really should have been probably home, he was there doing his part. And when I was at his funeral, I learned so much more about his impact on this community and the community of Spring Lake and Fayetteville and Cumberland County. This man, he gave far more than what he got. And so he'll forever be treasured in my memory for who he was and what he contributed to this great college and really the youth of all of Cumberland County. So Rex Perry, thank you. Elaine Cole Linko. She was a counselor at FTCC. She started working in 2003, and she departed this life on June 4th, 2020. Elaine was one of those individuals I'd get a call from periodically, and she'd talk to me about this or that. And she wanted to start this particular organization or that, of which I agreed. And she did a great job. When you see 150, 200 people in a room that want to be a part of what she authored, that says great things about her. And she was always right there doing the work that needed to be done. And, you know, things changed. It's just like it is on all of us. Change is not always easy. But I'll tell you, Elaine Cole Linko did some great work. And when you got to visit with her individually and see some of her history and how she was involved with the civil rights movement on into the early ages and how it had continued over the year, it's a real tribute to her and her impact on this world while she was with us, and we were privileged to know her. So I thank you, Elaine Cole. I'll always call her Elaine Cole, but Linko, she is a treasure. And so thank you for all your service. William Van Ewert. William was continuing education instructor of computer and networking and comprehensive fiber optics. He worked with us for 12 years. And unfortunately, William was lost to us on June 25th, 2020. He was one of those guys I didn't know very well. I knew he was out there. His name kept coming up over and over, especially as it related to work with Goodyear and other places that he had to navigate some interesting times and situations. But he also always did it with a plume. And then he came back and did some work with us more dramatically as days went on. And so Van, we call him Van Ewert, he just did a great job out there. And for many of us, we don't have the direct connection or direct contact with the actual businesses and industries that benefit from the services we provide. But people like Van, they did. And they're the ones who are working with the people who employ our students once they graduate here. And he did a great job. And he prepared them in ways where they could go to work and either enhance their skill sets at their respective businesses, so that they could be more productive and be, more prosperous in what they're doing. Thus, we as employees and beneficiaries of that work, as citizens, were able to make things happen. And I regret to tell you that Paul Saladay unfortunately passed away yesterday morning. And Paul is a business administration instructor. He'd served with us for 16 years, and unfortunately, the morning of August 12th, 2020, he passed. It's always heartbreaking to see someone who is vibrant. You see his beautiful smile there, and he was always a quiet presence. He was never, out loud or anything like that. He was always a strong, quiet presence. I always enjoyed visiting with him. I'd ask him how he was doing, and he led operations management and a variety of other things in that area, and did a great job in working with people, some of whom have retired, but he continued to work with them, Walter Boyle being one of them, and Cindy Burns and all these that continue to work with him, Ross Brown and others. It was a tragic loss yesterday. I had the privilege of visiting with his wife yesterday, and I will tell you, our process is this: when we lose somebody in any of these cases that you want to see, and everyone I've shared with you so far, we send a team to that home so that they can help with the benefits packages and so forth to help those the survivors work through difficult times, and we have done that already. Yesterday afternoon and today, we've already made contact, and we will do it according to the schedule that the surviving member wants, the spouse. But Paul Salada, you would have known that he and his family were facing some very, very trying times, because he's just a quiet professional that went on about his work and did a great job. We're going to miss you, Paul, and thank you for all you've done. And I know everyone who worked with you and served with you is going to do everything in their power to honor your memory and what you've done for our students. So thank you. Some of our retirees that have retired and gone on. Peggy Horn. Some of you remember Peggy Horn. She began working here in 1989. She was a senior secretary in continuing education, and she retired in 99. The date of her death was September 11th, 2019. Now you see that guy standing next to Peggy Horn. That is Charles Koontz. And Charles was one of these longtime employees of Fayetteville Tech in continuing education. And anytime I need to know something about tribal history, I go to Charles, because he can tell me. And Peggy Horn was one of those that he could really help. Now, Charles is a lot younger in that picture than what he is today. But, what a great tribute to Peggy Horn that, after the time she served, and she retired in 1999. And unfortunately, a lot of people that retire that much earlier, when they pass, they're not remembered. And I'm grateful to Wanda Dale and others for finding this information and sharing it with us, because these people matter. People matter. They are in the part of that foundation that we all benefit from and we drive from as the future takes place. June Lancaster, FTCC Director of Institutional Resources. She retired in 2001. That was about 6 years before I arrived, and her date of death was October 14th, 2019. Institutional resources. I mean, again, we stand on the shoulders of giants that came before us. There's just no question about that. June Lancaster fell into that category, much like Peggy Horn did. And so it's a situation to where we need to understand that. But the foundations that we continue to build and grow on will matter dramatically in terms of the future. Wayne Thompson, business administration instructor, began working here in 1990, retired 2001. And his date of death was December 29th, 2019. I'd see him periodically around the community, or he'd come to some of our retiree events and so forth. And he was always, somebody who I enjoyed being around. I did not have the privilege of knowing him very well, but when I was at his funeral and I heard what he had contributed to this college as a business administration instructor and leader, it was significant. And the quality and the awe with which people looked at him that were remembering his services to the college was dramatic. So Wayne Thompson, thank you. Bertha McMillan, $1 Million Smile, Lieutenant for FTCC Security. She retired in 2012. She served over 22 years at this college, and the date of her death was July 15th, 2020. Bertha McMillan had one of those $1 Million Smiles. She always had a spring in her step, and I enjoyed visiting with her every time I encountered her. She would check in on me periodically when I'd be working late or I'd be working here and there, and she was always trying to make sure that I was okay, and I've always appreciated that about her, but mostly about her smile, her genuineness, and her heart. They were always genuine to me and others that I know who knew her. And although she's retired and she's gone from us, Bertha, you'll be remembered a long time in favorable terms. So thank you so much. Richard Jarvis, I did not know him very much, but I know of his reputation. He was the accounting department head. He retired in 2000. He worked over 31 years at this college, and his date of death was July 16th, 2020. Now, Richard Jarvis is one of these individuals that I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about Wayne Thompson. I don't know if you know this, but FTCC at one time, and I presume still do, I'll have to check that, but at one time, if you had a baccalaureate degree in accounting, they would come and they would train you and educate you with the skill sets necessary to go sit for the CPA exams. Now, anybody who knows anything about CPA exams they know that you just don't pass those things out. I mean, it is rigorous, and you really got to know what you do. So when you take professionals like this that created a reputation at Fayetteville Tech for that kind of service, and Wayne Thompson, it tells you a lot about the quality of these people. And although we lost Richard Jarvis in 2020 in July, his legacy will continue to live on for some time. And there are CPAs, former directors and vice presidents here who got their training and education from him and others in that department. So he has done an exceptional job in helping us do the things that we need to do. So pleased to know of his work, and I've met him in different places. But the point being is, again, we stand on the shoulders of giants that came before us. I hope we're remembered that way as well. And here's another giant. Stacy Weaver. Before I got here in 2007, Stacy Weaver was always a stalwart, not only in the community, but at this college. He served FTCC as a board attorney for many, many years. Now, he was on retainer. He was not in the capacity that David Sullivan is, but I'll tell you, there was no better advocate for this college than what we did. And even whenever we brought on a full-time attorney, we would call Stacy Weaver periodically to find the context in which different things were done. And he was always ready, willing, and able to assist us in any way he could to get the job done and to help us move forward. So Stacy Weaver, even after he retired and left us, it was literally a situation where he continued to support us in so many ways. So Stacy Weaver is one of those heroes in the history of FTCC, pardon me, and will always remain so. And finally, in memory of Senator Tony Rand, he's a longtime supporter with significant contributions to FTCC. He was the foundation board director for 16 years. He was the associate VP for Human Resources and Career Center Management, and his date of death was May 1st, 2020. Now, for those that did not know Tony Rand, he was an individual that, he had a love for life. That smile you see on his face was not minuscule. It was always dramatic in terms of what he did and how he did it. I never will forget that when I was working with the General Assembly a lot in North Carolina, in Raleigh, that I'd have a question, or sometimes, I was always responsible for giving yearly reports to the joint committees on House and Senate. And if I had a question on a particular thing, or I had a particular challenge on a particular deal that was going to affect whether we were able to locate or expand businesses here in North Carolina, on a number of those occasions, I went to Senator Rand and I said, now these are the implications of the legislation that we're considering here. Now, what do you want to do? Where do you want us to go? And normally I would phrase those in a way that it would mean that if we did not do something different than where we were headed, we're going to lose those jobs and those companies. And Senator Rand, on more than one occasion, went in and on behalf of the people of North Carolina, through the community colleges, made judgments at the Senate. He was the second most powerful, and really, I think, the most powerful guy in the Senate at the time, probably the third most powerful guy in the entire state at the time. And again, that's debatable. He might have been higher than that. but he did things for Cumberland County and for FTCC that will never be forgotten. His name sits on our student services building over there. And I'll tell you, just as you see that beautiful smile of his, he was one of the most gracious, one of the most interesting, one of the most intelligent people I've ever had the privilege of meeting and knowing. And so, Tony Rand, my friend, we're going to miss you. And thank you for all you've done for so many years to help so many of us. Again, grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love. And you know, it says the author is unknown, and I think that's really fitting, because whoever wrote this, whoever penned this, you know, captured the essence of what really is important. And if you ascribe that to a particular name, then sometimes that diminishes the value of that statement. So as those have passed on before, some as recently as yesterday, understand that we want to keep them in the highest standard in our memories. And we want to do the things that help move us forward as a people and as a group, so that we can in fact do the work that we need to do to not only honor their memories and their sacrifice and their contributions, but at the same time to build upon that foundation, a stronger foundation that each of us contribute to as we move forward. It has been an unprecedented year. In February, FTCC began contingency planning in case of a brand new highly contagious virus called COVID-19 spread to North Carolina. I unfortunately lost my brother in January 13th. And as I was in his hospital hospital room, I saw some of the early reports of that in late December. And somebody said, oh, it'll never get over here. It started in China, where they had some of the first, outbreaks there. And they described what was going on all that time. And then it went to Italy. And Italy was what I was worried about because we had such frequent travel between those different places. And sure enough, that's what happened. March 18th, we transitioned to online instruction for most courses. Now, before that, for the 10 years prior to that, we had been making a requirement that everybody have online components to their instruction. Everybody, period. No debate. And the net result of that is that it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it when we had to make the transitions, but it was a lot better than it could have been. And so March 23rd, all FTCC employees except for campus essential personnel started working from home or taking leave if online work was not possible. Some face-to-face classes continued in critical areas such as public safety and health programs, where we were given some ability to adjust our instructional technique to meet those needs, because those were the things that were on the first line. I'll never forget that when we got the message in healthcare, send all your students home because we can't accommodate them. And that lasted for about a week, if that long. And they said, oh my gosh, we made a mistake, bring them back because we need their help. And so what happened was that they went in there, and even to the extent that some of the students weren't quite sure they wanted to go back. And to the credit of our healthcare professionals, they went in and said, you know, if you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to learn with all the proper PPE and all that kind of thing, then this might not be the career field that you want to pursue. And I appreciate them for that, because they were giving those students the information they needed to make decisions right away. And you know, it's courageous discussions to have in difficult times. And by the way, most of them went back. And so it was a good opportunity to learn. Our faculty developed innovative ways to teach students online, and everyone became proficient at holding meetings via Zoom and other online platforms. I'll tell you what, I've lived more on Zoom in the last 8 months than I ever dreamed. You know, WebEx, I've been on those before. Team sharing, I've been on those. Never heard of one called Blue Jeans, and I'm sure that there are others out there. But they are all different platforms that we've all had to master. And I will say this to you, I think the truth is we're going to have to continue to master these things. There is no way in the world that we're going to be back to the old normal, whatever that was. You know, I think we have improved in a lot of ways. We have more frequent interactions together. And when I share this information with you in a little while about how we did, I think you're going to be impressed with what we've learned in a short period of time. The college, the foundation, and many FTCC employees found ways to help the community during the pandemic. We loaned 4 ventilators to Cape Fear when they, worldwide, and certainly in our country, to include here in Fayetteville, they didn't have enough ventilators to anticipate the projected number of people coming in there that would demand them. So we loaned 4 of them that we use in our respiratory therapy program to them, and they've used them. David Joyner led a volunteer effort to create masks when masks were few and far between. And so we learned, we refined, we learned, and worked with the police department and healthcare professionals to do some things. And it's a great tribute to David Joyner, but also to Tori Quizamundo and some others that were involved in that process. The foundation helped dozens of students in dire financial need, and later helped more in grants from the CARES Act. And we had a certain amount of money, as Sandy alluded to earlier, in that fund, but we didn't have every piece of money. And so we started getting calls like the young man described to you in the video, and she was able to help. And as she helped, then people became more and more effective in terms of what they're doing. In May, we started coming back to campus. We had to. What your board did is gave us the ability to extend 30 days to where if people had to go home, we could pay them. And we did that. We exhausted that. About that time, the governor came out with his recommendations. We're now into the 6th iteration of those, and he has extended the phase 2 for another 4 to 5 weeks. And so we're bound by that, but there is no more money from the college to pay like we did in the first phase. I mean, it's a real tribute to your staff here and the board to make that judgment. And frankly, a lot of us thought, to include the healthcare professionals, that by the time May rolled around, we'd be out of this. We wouldn't have to worry about it. The governor has given us some additional discretion to do that, but that has run out. And we've got federal funds that and those are about to run out. And so it really leaves a dilemma as to how long we can continue to do this. But the reason I'm telling you that is I want you to know that we have done exceptional work in trying to get people the resources that they need so they can do the work that they need to do, and at the same time continue on with some degree of normality that might not otherwise be available. What the future holds, I don't know. No one knows, and we honestly think that it'll continue to go through the fall. And so that's going to force us to make judgments and decisions, and I think you as well, in the terms of the way we do our work, because we've got to continue to serve people. And if we don't, there's no reason for us. And so that is the struggle that we're going through right now. Whether it's through the president's executive order or Congress gets involved and they come up with other resources to help, I don't know. I think that's all out now. If it's not out, at least it's going to be challenged in court, which will delay its implementation. But time's running out. December 31st, I think, is going to be a really difficult time for people that are even able to stay on it that long. And we had our first situation where we have 4 or 5 individuals that are beginning to run out of all of that extra help that they have. So those are the things that we're having to struggle with up here to help people do what they can to maintain their service to the college and its students, but also to their families. And so I would ask you to be judicious in decisions and things you ask us to do in trying to make those things happen. Face-to-face classes return for makeup sessions for spring students and also for summer session students. And we've been working, throughout the summer to help students who had to take incompletes and get into proper distancing modalities and so forth so they could do it safely. And the net result of all that was that we've been very, very successful. And I will tell you that the challenge of the spring students finish on time and with great results. Now, this number, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And so, we're showing 1,100. Here's the real numbers I got just a little while ago. Now, some of these are duplicated, and that 1,100 figure, some of them may not be duplicated. But the truth is, when we got to the end of the semester in May, we had 1,856 students apply for graduation. Hear that number. Last year we had 2,300, 2,400. This year, with the pandemic and all the things that interrupted the spring semester, and we were on track for another great semester. We had 1,856 people at the end of May that completed their requirements for graduation. The others that could not complete those requirements because of laboratories and things of that nature, hands-on requirements for licensure and something, we worked through that with them this summer, and our instructors did a phenomenal job in adjusting what they were doing to sometimes give 2 classes as opposed to 1, so to get proper separation and proper work with those students. 1,602 students. 1,602 students this summer that were finished in terms of completing the requirements for their particular credential. Now that is phenomenal. That equates, I think my math is right, to 3,458 students. Now last year when you took about that same number of students, and I think I'm right when I say this, we were at about 2,500 students. The year before that, about 2,600 students. And so with all the difficulties that we had this year, if we're able to go out there and get the number that I just quoted to you, 3,458 students that represent all credentials, some of them duplicated, I understand, but that is a pretty darn significant effort on your part and on the students' part. So I congratulate you, I applaud you, and I'll guarantee you that success is only due to the dedication and creativity that you as faculty and staff have done. And it's the determination of our students. A lot of people in our sister institutions throughout North Carolina, and I'm saying this, and I don't mean it to sound as bad as it does, but the truth of the matter, some of them were a bit worried about where they're going to go. And some of them are still not recovered. We're not where we need to be. As of this morning, we're down 7% in head count, 9% in FTE. There's a missing factor out there somewhere. We had a big purge of about 651 students yesterday, yesterday I believe it was. And so that's a big number to make up. But when you look at the numbers that you have here, it's pretty significant in terms of where we are. The pandemic forced changes. The official ceremony was postponed until December. We have a native Fayettevillean who is the secretary of the VA, Robert Wilkie, who is our commencement speaker. And he was coming ready to go. And then this thing hit, and I just could not risk taking you and everybody in there. It was too volatile at the time. And we may not even be able to do it in December, but at least we know what we can do. And so we adapted. And while we didn't have a formal graduation, we did a lot of different things in pinning students, especially in healthcare, award ceremonies, and overall gratitude for those who successfully completed their programs in nursing, radiography, radiology, and dental assisting, and the great final exam video made by our cosmetology students. You saw a little bit about a while ago, cap and gown drive-through out at JP Riddle. And if you were not able to participate in that, I'll tell you what, it was a sight to behold. And it was hotter than all Billy Blue Blazes, but by the same token, people had fun. And I'm grateful to our security people and everyone else who organized that. I'll tell you, our student services folks did a great job doing the work that they do. And I'll tell you what, it took a lot of coordination to make that happen. When you saw those students and their families come through in those cars, and you had people who had educated them and worked with them and cried with them and congratulated them whenever they were doing well, it meant a lot. And you saw some of them that would go through and they'd have tears in their eyes as they went through, and a lot of them so happy that they were just continuing on. So hats off to all, mortarboards too, and success, the success is yours, just as the success belongs to those students as well. It wouldn't have happened without you. What does the coming year bring? I wish I could tell you it's bright and rosy. Undoubtedly more surprises and more challenges. This year, because of your efforts last year, we got a $4 million increase in our budget. And with that $4 million increase in our budget, we thought we were standing pretty good. Well, the first thing they did is they took a 2% holdback, and they put these words in it, at least 2%. So we held back 2%, but they could very easily come back to us and tell us we want 5% or we want 6% or whatever. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. We hope not. And we hope that the CARES Act funding on the other side of the question are going to be taken care of to where it can help lessen that pain, but or reduce that pain. But the point being is it may come. I think we can make it through this year in pretty good shape, but next year, depending on what the tax revenues were coming out of the July count, which just happened this past month, and they don't have all those figures figured out yet, but they do think that it's down, then next year could be a real challenge for us. So we've got to do everything we can wisely and do it effectively in terms of what we're doing. So it's going to be more challenging, and we're going to find more surprises. As I mentioned to you earlier, we were on the phone with Dr. Jennifer Green, great leader of our county health department, earlier today, and she said we were doing all the things well. We could do a couple things a little better. And I asked her this question. I said, looking into your crystal ball, what does it look like? She thinks we're going to go through the fall and have the same kind of issues that we've been facing through the summer and spring of last year. And I agree with her. I think we are as well. So we've got to be smart about what we do. And here's the other thing, to reduce or minimize those surprises and those challenges is that if we'll just do what the CDC and what we have shared with you and do it consistently, both on campus and off campus, and manage what we do, then we'll get to the end of this thing much, much faster. If we fail to do that, then we could be in this thing for at least another year. Now let that sink in, because we're going to require things be done on this campus. I can influence that. I can't influence what you do when you leave campus. But what you do if you leave campus and you bring something back, then that compromises everybody. So please, please, please take these concerns and these processes beyond the boundaries of our campus. Protect yourself, your family, and loved ones, and help protect us as well. And I think when that happens, and we have enough people in critical mass that do that all over the country, this thing will come to an end. So as we navigate the pandemic, we're going to continue to adjust and fine-tune operations. This thing is not a one-and-done thing. It's not you do one thing, one plan, then it just ends. Just like today, we're going to make a couple minor changes to what we do. And it's going to have implications on people. And it's going to have implications on everybody that can continue to work. And it's going to have implications on people that cannot continue to work. So we just bear with us. We're trying to do everything we can. Please, please, please watch the website. Pay attention to your email and social media because so much information goes there. I'll be honest with you, I was a bit dismayed yesterday when I learned that a lot of people were calling who've been off campus and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm scared of this and that. Well, I understand that. But that stuff has been up there for a long time, and we've had our processes that we've modified over time. So please take the responsibility, I think the professional responsibility, to go on there and inform yourself before you get here. That's the nature of a professional, regardless of what we do. And stay informed. And then if we do that, then we'll be able to navigate this thing far, far more effectively. You'll find many new fashions on campus in the form of stylish face coverings. Now, this one's kind of a boring one, but I've seen some of them that are really interesting from students walking through here today when I met some of them, and one of our staff members that had emojis all over her face mask. I loved it. And it's really interesting to watch the creativity that people have had as they put these things together, and they're all different kinds. Just make sure they cover your nose, they cover your mouth, and quite frankly, you've got it pulled down below your nose or your mouth, or it's under your chin. That's doing no one any good. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do them any good. And we're going to correct it. Now, I didn't think I'd have to send out a letter that I had to send out not long ago, but you'd be surprised how many letters I got from people on campus thanking me for that, because it said we're paying attention. And, it's just literally a matter in which we are paying attention and making sure that we do the things that we do when you have your hearing aids hooked up to your telephone, it can really distract you when it goes off. So my apologies. But pay attention. Wear those things properly. Keep your distance. We learned today that if you spend more than 15 minutes within 6 feet, that's an exposure. If you're in a classroom and you spend 15 minutes or more and you're farther than 6 feet, that's not an exposure. And so we've been pretty conservative in sending people home if they're just in the room. We're not going to have to do that anymore. And that's for CDC and health department guidelines. And so if everybody does what they're supposed to do with the mask, the hands cleaning, we've got stuff everywhere. We're cleaning everything in the world, and we're going to maintain that. They told us today we didn't really have to do that to the degree that we are, but we're going to do it. We're going to continue on cleaning the surfaces to the same degree we're doing now to help protect you. So just understand that's going to be a little bit different, but we're doing it out of an abundance of caution so we can protect everybody. You're going to see people wearing colorful wristbands to show their temperature's been taken on a campus on that day, and it's within acceptable limits. The limit is this, it's 100.4. And so when you come in, and now if you're sick, if you're exhibiting the symptoms of COVID-19, or for that matter, any illness, don't come. Get checked out, but don't put yourself in that position nor other people as well. Now you are looking at the world's worst. I'm damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead kind of guy. And I've had to learn something about that with my passion and with my focus and my commitment, sometimes what happens is I can endanger others, and I'm not going to do that. So just please, please, please pay attention. We're closing off the doors to the buildings. We'll have 1 or 2 major entrances. Please don't use any other. You're going to be tested when you go in. We're buying machines that will be set up tomorrow or this weekend that when you walk through those doors in our high visible areas, that you'll walk through, it takes your temperature without you having to do anything particularly. But if it hits that mark at 104, we're going to pull you aside and we're going to go over and take your temperature again in about 2 or 3 minutes. And if it's still elevated, we're going to take you to a room to include the students and not have you all too close together. But if we have to send someone home, we will. And we'll work with you to make sure that all those things take place properly. Now, faculty members, staff members, what that really means is this. It is not business as usual. That means that you have got to go out and reach out to that student. That student has got to reach out to you. And even though the circumstance may be a little bit different, they need to pay attention. You need to pay attention and help them out. It's just that important. And with some of the new rules from DOE in terms of start-stop times and how much time we have to work, we really have to stay on top of it. So be aware of that. And if we don't have anybody, I know that we don't have everybody on this call today. It's recorded. Everybody needs to hear that. And the deans and the department heads and the coordinators have really got to stay on top of that. More importantly, our faculty and staff need to stay on top of it. When you have a wristband, I had a blue one yesterday that they awarded me. And so that meant for that day only. It might be pink today. They're not going to wear the same wristbands day in and day out and get away with it. So every day they're going to have to come through that until this thing subsides. So just participate, cooperate with them. And no one likes to do this, but nevertheless, for the time being, this is what we have to do. And thank you for all those people that have gone out and been willing to help us with this. This is another duty is assigned. And of course, we're not going to put anybody in there that has extremely high risk or anything like that, but just work with us on it, because the truth is, if we've got to go out and hire a bunch of people to come in, this is going to pull away from you even more than what you have currently in terms of our budget. You'll find new layouts in classrooms and other areas where things are set in 6 foot spacing. With that 6 foot spacing, as I said a little bit earlier, if you're within 6 foot and you're there more than 15 minutes, you're exposed, period. But when you really look, and I've taken a walk around and looked at them, then when you really look at, even in our cubicle areas, there's more than 6 feet between those things and separated dividers. And so yet I really applaud our people because they're still wearing the mask inside that. And that's a smart thing to do. So thank you for doing that. We've operated on campus in some form throughout the entire pandemic. We never closed. That was a word early on people got worried about. We never did close. We stayed open, and we did it in different ways, but we stayed open. And what we discovered is that we actually improved in some things. The time on task, the level of productivity, the forcing us to use technology more effectively than we had, all became a positive part of what we're doing, and we're reaping the benefits of that now. Operations may have to move back to online. So I keep telling our vice presidents this: I don't know what's going to happen. I know that whenever people come back next week, that there's going to be somebody who's exposed. There is no doubt about that. Now, I'll just tell you the general numbers. We've had about 93 people, to include those that we thought were exposed, and we were overly cautious, and we sent them home as well for a period of incubation or staying apart, anywhere from 10 to 14 days, and we would test them and say come back with a negative test and all that. Out of those, we had 19 that did test positive. And in every case, they came from outside the college. It was not inside the college. Now let that sink in for a minute, because we could enforce things for the most part while we were on campus, but when they left campus, they went to the four winds, and that is a disastrous mistake. Now, we have not had anybody hospitalized that I'm aware of. We certainly have not, maybe one, but I'm not sure about that. And we certainly have not had anybody die that we have been involved in, and that's exactly what we want. No hospitalizations, no one dying. People are going to be exposed, but the more you mitigate that by observing these things when you go outside this campus wall, the better off you're going to be. So we're going to deal with the things that we face even more successfully by what we've learned so far. We've learned a lot. We're strong because of you. We depend on and are blessed by your expertise and your commitment, your versatility, the ability to adapt to rapid changes that support students, and more importantly, support you. If these students are not coming, there's no reason to have us here. That includes me, that includes you. We have discovered that there are some things with some people being gone since March that could not telework, that quite frankly, we haven't missed a beat. And so I think what happens in organizations over time, they build themselves, and as they build themselves, we build positions to just have positions without any real purpose. And we've got to take a hard look at that. We're going to be looking at that anyway, and have been for years. We're not as many as we were a few years ago. And quite frankly, there are reasons for that. We've got to look at organizational efficiency and effectiveness as well. We've needed your skills, and we'll continue to need them more as we move into the new school year. And what makes it work, and a part of that solution, is you and what you do day in and day out. And quite frankly, as long as we continue to do this, I think we're going to have good things happen for the future. Some of the things that you've accomplished this year, I'm not going to read every one of these, but we continue to do well in the military and our service to them. That's important, because not only are they members of our respective communities, they're a part of the very facet that provides our freedoms and the things that we enjoy. National College recognitions, Academic Innovator of the Year by the International Council of Electronic Commerce Consultants. We're doing better. And then the accreditation of Computer Integrated Machining Program by NIMS. That is the defining factor in the entire country in terms of how much quality you have in what we do in our manufacturing categories. Surgical First Assistant Program, first in North Carolina and 11th in the nation to earn accreditation by the Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs. I mean, Terry Herring and others continue to do exceptional work in that realm. And so we need to pay attention to those things and celebrate them. Individual recognitions, I won't name every individual on this, but I'll tell you what, I'm so proud of the people on this list. This was previously the John and Susan Roosh Awards. They're the League of Excellence Awards. And quite frankly, I know John Roosh and Suzanne Roosh. I knew her before she passed. But the point being is that this is not a lightweight award. If you're selected for this award, you're doing some great work. And so I look at all of them as being great people, but I'll tell you what, I look at Terry Herring. I just, shared one of his things with you. I don't know if it's Brian Oldham or somebody on his staff. I have not gotten the answer to that yet, but read a wonderful article, and there was a television show about it as well, about a woman, I think it was a woman that broke down on the side of the road. One of the people came over and picked it up and helped her with her car and helped her get, satisfied there and got her squared away and safe. And his wife and child were waiting in the car while he took care and looked at her and helped her. And she was so grateful in terms of that support and the kinds of things that he did to help her and ease a very trying circumstance. And so, Brian, if that wasn't you, please extend my appreciation to people on your staff who may have fallen into that category. And I can tell stories about each one of these individuals on this list that have done exceptional work and deservedly have been recognized for their great work. NISOD is another one. That is no small deal. We have a NISOD program coming up in October. It's out of the University of Texas, and it's the National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development. John Roosh is the one who started that many, many years ago, and it's one of the marquee programs in the state. So when people are recognized for their quality in things like this is just so important. Every one of them extremely deserving. I'll tell you a little story. Yesterday we had some interaction with our liaison, our vice president at SACS COC. Everybody knows how important that is right now. Next week, we're going to send in our final reports to everybody in our 5-year, sending in, making sure that we're okay on that. We had a visit yesterday. One of the names that came up in the course of that conversation was Alicia Davis. She's a data management technician. Tracy Verrier was there as well as the administrative assistant 3. And, you take a look at these people and, the question was, do we have enough time to make the modifications that we need to make between now and we're supposed to get the list of people we're supposed to send it to on Monday and out of the door no later than Tuesday. And so I'm sitting there big, dumb, and happy. And I said, thank you, first of all, for letting us know what might be a problem. But Mark Sorrells, Carl Mitchell, Tracy Verrier, Alicia Davis, they got together and they went in there and started reworking that document. If you know anything about this, that's no easy task, and it's got to be precise. It's got to be exactly right. There is no room for error. And they went in and did that and worked together. And additional people came in from student services today to modify what they were doing and make it more correct. To me, that's the kind of thing that sets people apart in terms of what they do. It's, of course, it's the normal part of their duty and their responsibilities. But I'm telling you, it really says some special things about people. Gail Davis was one of them that when we were trying to go to, this whole, and Carl, we were trying to go this whole thing in terms of our efforts to do things. And they, in HR, you'd be incredibly stunned by how much attention to detail that they have to do to make sure that you're taken care of and the college is taken care of. And the question was, how in the world are we going to do this? I said, we'll figure it out. And they did. And so we're doing things with Barbara and Gail and their entire team down there now in electronic documents we've never done before, and it works, and it's really improved even productivity from there. So, and I could go down through each one of these individuals and say the same thing. Brenda Nightingale, you talk about a champion there in terms of what she's doing. She's one of the ones I alluded to earlier when we lost Paul yesterday morning. She was on the phone yesterday morning or early afternoon with Paul's wife, trying to find a way in which she could help her. That is the characteristic of the people that we need to have, who have a servant's heart, and the people that want to help other people navigate difficult circumstances. And I could say some of the same things for every individual listed on this NISOD list. So thank you for what you do. Some of the individual recognitions we have, Julian Beltran, a philosophy instructor. Now, Julian is going to, is the Excellence in Teaching Award nominee for our state competition. As you know, we compete with all 58 community colleges throughout the state each year. We've won some of them. And, Julian is going to be our representative this year, but in great company with Jesse Bellflowers in General Business Administration, Juanita Williams as a cosmetology, instructor, and Patricia Hayworth, certified nursing assistant. We've got a lot of good people on that list, and any of them would have been fine representatives, but Julian's going to lead the way for us. On our Distinguished Staff Awards, Rodney Rogers is going to represent us in the President's Distinguished Staff Award nominee for our state competition. Every time I've ever been anywhere in terms of the hard things and maintenance, and you know, I'll tell you, it takes a lot. We've got about 1 million square feet under roof at this college in different sites. And we have a very light maintenance staff to take care of all of it. Rodney Rogers is one of those people that does that and does it consistently well. And I think Rodney's one of them that lives over in the Lumberton area. And when we had Matthew and Florence, he and his buddy at the time who worked here, I don't think he does any longer. I don't know if it was his truck or his buddy's truck. They're driving through floodwater to get here to take care of this college. And so, you know, Sarah Gibbs, golly, she's an institution here. And Sarah's going to be retiring here in October to go take care of grandbabies, and I envy her on that. But what a great asset she has been to this college and helping each of you. Lisa O'Hearn, Senior Secretary for Community Services, a long-time great leader in what we do, and Adrian Murphy, Coordinator for Placement and Evaluation. There is so much going on, but Rodney's going to lead the charge for us in that particular arena. Some of the things that have been accommodated here on curriculum, we lobbied to have faculty, so the salaries be factored to align more closely with market demand. That's not new. That's been something that's been going on for a long time. And because of the growth and the opportunities that we had over the last few years, we were able to make some adjustments you'll learn about a little bit more. We adjusted and acquired resources. Mark Soros has been a godsend in helping us gain access to grants and other things to enhance our skills and stimulation labs in the nursing programs. And so Mark and everybody, Michelle Walden and everybody that's been involved in that, got about a little less than $1 million to help us on a nursing simulation lab, which allows us to really go up and get to 200 approved nursing students. And as you know, we had to close our child care center because of a variety of reasons, but we're going to use that facility now to house our nursing simulation labs, and that will give us the additional capacity to do the clinicals. We formed a partnership with four-year institution and attracted resources to establish a statewide workforce initiative. It's called the Carolina Cyber Network, to address the talent gap in cybersecurity that will leverage assets from other community colleges and universities in North Carolina. We and that college are in the lead. And this year we'll get about $1.5 million in that to start the curriculum development process. The other one doing what they're doing at the university level in terms of some of the leadership activities. And then quite frankly, we'll extend that to other community colleges throughout North Carolina. But FTC is going to be in the lead on that process. We work in concert with a lot of people. That's just the way you do it. And so we're really excited. Tiffany Allred was selected as a Red Hat ambassador. That's a big deal. And Tiffany's going to have great opportunities with Red Hat if she stays the course. Seamlessly transitioned to a technology-rich teaching and learning environment in March, and it's got to be better now, because I'm telling you, we may have to flip the switch. And if we do, we're going to do it without even the difficulties that we had in the spring, as seamless as it was. Student services, you talk about adjustments made to COVID-19 when you talk about admissions and everything. Our offerings were switched seamlessly. A lot of those people went home and worked telephonically or at least telework. They helped the cap and gown pickup event. Marlena did a phenomenal job on organizing that and working with the people out there. She is really leading the way in what we're doing over there. I'm real proud of her. Our nursing pinning ceremony was quickly switched to a drive-through event, and the joy on the face of those people was remarkable. And it created basically a number of virtual open houses and advising events and orientations that would not have been possible had they not really stepped up to the plate. As recently as last week, when I made it wasn't a bad call. I mean, you rely on the weather reports, and I sent you home early on that evening before, expecting the worst to still be with us until about 2 o'clock on the day of the hurricane or the tropical storm was to be here, and woke up that morning, saw bright blue skies, and it got better. Our student services people came in at noon. Now, there were some of us here from the morning, as they normally are, but the student services people came in at noon so they could continue to help register and take care of students that were coming here. And by the way, a lot of them came here. So some of the most impressive gains or responses to situations this year, you can read what we have. We kept things clean. The grounds were immaculate. I'll tell you a story on that. We've had a number of people that will come through and they walk out here in the morning, and I'm talking about very notable people in our communities. All of them are notable, but some of them who make decisions. And the unsolicited compliments that I've received on our grounds crew and the respect that our security and our grounds crew and our maintenance crews give to those people. They say they always stop and speak to them. If they're cutting grass or they're using a blower, they stop and let them walk by. You know, how do you teach that? That's people who have a heart in the right place. And I couldn't be more pleased with that kind of thing, because that affects student services. It affects community image and what we do and how we do it. If staff and faculty continue to develop and adapt to change, I think that's going to be necessary into the future. Stepping up to work remotely when we can. Can't work remotely, you better learn how. Because I'm telling you, if we have to do this again, that is going to be one of the only solutions we have to do in what we have. That is a hard thing to say, but until I see more resources coming to assist us, we may not have any other choice. Student services maintained services throughout the COVID-19 crisis, and they never missed a beat. That is a huge statement. It's a huge accomplishment. Support students and the many resources they need in the upcoming year. It's going to be tough. Due to unemployment and lack of funding, students will need access to resources they may never have had to think of before. Now, I'd like to say that was true. At this point, it's not proving out. And here's why. Normally what happens when there's a downturn in the economy, our enrollment goes out the roof. That is not happening. As a matter of fact, as I told you earlier, we were down 7% on head count this morning. We're down 9% on FTE. Now, what I can't understand is other colleges are about even. So there's a gap or a miss that we're making in there somewhere. We've got to figure that out. And I think it's all hands on deck. Now, people have been working hard. Don't misunderstand me. And but there's still something missing in that gap there that we're not quite sure of. We've got to figure that out. You know, everybody needs to know what we can do as a college, and not just a few people that are the resident experts. Hiring freeze. This is a good place to bring it up. The legislature gave me the ability to hire anybody in instruction. I can do that. And in some cases, if I feel like it is a critical hire, I can hire people in other categories, but I've got to really watch what I've done. I've been pretty liberal with that so far. But there will be a point in time, if I'm too liberal with that it's taken out of my hands. And frankly, I'd rather it be in my hands than out of them. So I think we've been pretty aggressive with what we've done, but this is going to be a new normal. I hate those words, but this is going to be a new normal. And we may have to find ways to do work that we could not, that we just have not had to do before. And so I do know this: when it comes to hiring teachers, I can hire them. But when it comes, but now the first thing I'll ask Mark Charles when I come in and with that question is, what's the demand? And if the demand is not there, I'm not going to do it. And so that's true of everything, is that it's demand driven. In corporate and continuing education, look at the 100% job placement rates. I'm pleased with that. Successfully moved normal face-to-face content for RMA and phlebotomy and EMT to a hybrid format to meet the needs. Online welding. People used to tell me, you can't do online welding. Yes, you can. You can do online welding very well, and then ultimately get to the point where you have to do it in real time. They also moved the following courses to online. Look at that entire list of things there. Those are things that could have been online for a long time. Still engage with the students, just in a different format and modality. And so Dr. Marsh and her team have been doing some great things down there to try to help. And why this is important is that sometimes when we have drops in what we do in curriculum, corporate and continuing education come in and make up the difference, and they've done a great job of doing that over the years. New Bank Title Training, Treasurer's Office in the state of North Carolina, partnering with Operation Next. That's one that's trying to do some work on a large scale with Fort Bragg, and we have an opportunity to work with them on a national scale, and they're doing some great work in looking at those possibilities. Cross-trained CCE team with readily available to assist the public in a variety of areas. Those things are in fact possible. All right, so the Center for Innovation Entrepreneurs offering its first Ice House training online. This is one that's been around for a long time, very successful, but also NC Real will also go online, and that's the one that we've used here for a long time in North Carolina as well. The gains, the employee commitment to the college and to the flexibility they've shown thinking outside the box is enormously important. And that's really true of everybody in the entire college, but when you really look at what they do, because corporate and continuing education is normally, I mean, it is hands-on, face-to-face, up close and personal, and they've found some new ways of doing things. Some of the challenges is working with those industries out there, which they've worked directly with those industries more so than anybody else. And quite frankly, trying to work in new formats in a way that it will complement their processes while not compromising their productivity levels is important, because at the end of the day, that's what pays their bills. Administrative services is a category that's under Joe Levester, as many of you know. The print shop, they continue to support the college throughout COVID-19. Again, we didn't close the doors. There were some references to things like that early on. We did not. We never closed. We just modified what we did. 2,000 print impressions performed during 2020. That means folks are doing a whole lot of stuff. The management information stuff, operational data store, Civitas, we're still, as a matter of fact, that's why we delayed it for an hour today, is that we had a significant number of people, faculty especially, that were taking Civitas training, and that is here. It's going to happen, so we need to get really good at it. And so, and there's going to be no more delays in that. Configured over 200 laptops in less than 3 weeks for the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what that really meant is that we had to configure those computers, laptops, and whether it was for students or it was for faculty and staff, that we felt like we were going to have to go home and be the ones who had to work from home. 150 VPN licenses, that actually went up to 200. And then we withdrew 40 of them because they weren't being used due to the nature of what was being required. Supported 19,700 work orders this past year. The truth is, that's a lot. 24/7 operations in the college, COVID-19, continuity of operations plan. Those things are the things that help us day in and day out. We just adapted to everything we were faced with. All right, business and finance. We implemented a new staff and new faculty salary scale in December of 2019. We've been looking at this for a long time. We've actually been doing it for a while. We did one a few years ago, and frankly, I wasn't pleased with it. And so we went in and reworked that. And so they worked in concert with Human Resources to review 162 staff positions that we had at the college. As a result, 60% of the college's staff positions were upgraded on the staff salary scale. Now, what we did learn is that there were some of them that were already paid higher than the market demand in the area, and we did not take that money away from those people. But what we did do was we leveled that out to where it was more representative and more equal for the people that had those requirements. And so it was really important. When I saw that it was staff only, I got excited about that because I thought it needed to be faculty as well. Now, due to legislation, there's no distinction in curriculum and faculty and continuing education faculty salary scales at FTCC. That's where it needs to be. Different requirements, different audiences in many ways, but still the same requirement for effectiveness, efficiency, and quality in what they do. We added more programs to the market demand faculty salary scale. If we're going to attract and keep great faculty, we've got to do what we need to do. So faculty and staff salaries were adjusted to new salary scales when applicable, and in conjunction with a 4% salary increase that was paid in December of 2019, that was retroactive to June 2019, that made a hefty increase in what we do. So I guess I'm saying this, we expect a lot, but I think we're getting closer to the point where we're able to pay for what we get, which has been a bit different than what we've had in the past, to be honest with you. So we've worked for many years on trying to get that better and in more alignment with what is really required. So improvement of the scales helps us attract and maintain high quality faculty. Now, and before I leave that, I'm gonna tell you this. We're not the top in the state at this point, but we're getting much closer. With next year's numbers and the way that we look and the way they evaluate these things, we, if not are going to be the top one, I think Robin would agree with me, we may be close to the top, if not the top one. And so we took strides light years ahead in all categories this year, and we hope you appreciate that. And we gave more in terms of our salary increase this year than many other colleges did. But we did that because we felt like you deserved it. Now, the CARES Act grant, that's the federal grant that the President and the Congress has approved. When they gave those, there were 3 iterations of those. The first one being for financial aid to help students that were affected by COVID-19. The second one was given to provide for resources that we would have been disrupted by COVID-19 activities and so forth, and that has more application to a wide variety of things, where we lost revenue or whatever it might have been, but it's not foolproof either. And then we had a third iteration that came that gave us a little more flexibility in helping students that were displaced by COVID-19. So we've used some of those last categories in emergency relief and things like that. But more has to be done. We don't have forever and a day to spend it. As a matter of fact, I'm very pleased with what we've been doing so far and where we are and what we're doing to allocate these resources. Funds have been and will continue to be used for student emergency grants, technology upgrades, receipt losses, and other expenses such as cleaning and so forth that we've had to incur as a result of COVID-19. SACS COC, Carl Mitchell and Mark Sarles are, especially Carl's my liaison to SACS COC. I'll get involved in that and so forth, but they're the ones who carry the heavy water to include the committees that have worked on this thing. And just a formal committee, but at the same time, all the other committees throughout the college that have worked on this and made contributions. It released, the compliance report was released to the offsite team in March 2020 on time. It has completed its work. They had a few of those focus report items that we talked about and I alluded to earlier. I'm so proud of the people that came together today to correct those so that we'll be able to distribute this thing on time in the way we should. All focus report items are minor in nature and easily addressed by the SACS COC leadership team. And I'm really complimenting Mark and Tracy and Leisha and then Rosemary Kelly and some of the people that came in and helped clean some of that up. So the point being is that I think we're going to be in really good shape when this thing all comes together. SACS COC team visits are going to be October 5th through the 8th. And compared to what we've done in the past, they're not going to be on site. They're not coming here. It's going to be virtual. We had an iteration of that already in the summer, and they liked it so well and thought we did so well that they're going to try it on the bigger one. That's the typical on-site visit. And so SACS COC's pretty much put a halt to their doing that. And we did it so well, as have others, that it may be a new way of doing things. I don't know. But they seem to be very pleased with what we've done and how we've done it. Remote lessons and lessons learned, DocuSign. I told you about that earlier, and Gail and her leadership and Barbara. I tell you, there are a lot of things that we're doing that have enhanced and I think even makes it a little quicker. to do some of the things that heretofore we would have caught on somebody's desk for a period of time. You don't have that chance now. You've got to make a decision to move on. The Employment and Affirmative Action Manual, according to new requirements by the Department of Education's new rules on Title 19, are significant. 2,000 pages in Title 19, and it will become a part of our policy. Fortunately, they've been able to share it and pare it down to about 60 pages, but it changes pretty dramatically. In the past, claims could be made with no defense. And basically, and the unfortunate part, a lot of people at colleges and universities were claimed to be the oppressors, and they were not, and they lost careers and they lost opportunities. Now, it makes it more difficult on the institutions and on both parties, but now you're kind of you have a right to defend yourself, which in the past you didn't seem to really have that much right. Public Relations and Marketing planned and oversaw the Trojan Field at J.P. Riddle Stadium to include a February 28th grand reopening. I hope you were there. If you were not, you really missed something special. We had the first State of Education forum that Catherine Pritchard, she coordinated that on our behalf. We did very well there. That was over at Fayetteville State University. And then we published a well-received 2019 annual report. And then we publicized a lot of FTCC people, events, and we got coverage in magazines and TV and other things, which we need to do that consistently. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind. So we need to stay upfront and personal, which is what we've been able to do. We communicated with college employees throughout the pandemic, and we continue to do that. But again, I'll reiterate, please make sure that you and your staff and your friends are paying attention, because it's your responsibility to read what is published as well, and you'll be up on the know. We don't hold anything from you, and the truth is you need to be able to get that information pretty quickly. FTCC with 2 cable TV ads, including Spanish and language versions, increased spending and fine-tuned messages in other FTCC areas. And then we are using new methods and more aggressive methods on social media to both current and potential students. We've got some work to do because we're down a little bit, but we've got work to do on that. We'll, I'm sure, succeed. Media services is awesome. They continue to be awesome. I think they're, you know, that they did your State of the College video for 2020. They always do and do a phenomenal job. They get better every year at what they do. And so I'd have to, give a special note of thanks to all of them, but especially Jason and Joe and Justin and Brad and, Janan and everybody that had anything to do with this. They just do a great job for us and represent us very well. We had 235 hosted events, provided timely classroom and technology support for all of those. And when you look at the events at J.P. Riddle Stadium, which Steve Driggers runs that operation for us on events out there, they hosted literally dozens. There were hundreds of people that went out there this summer, almost constantly during the week and during the weekends. And we maintained no more than 25 people in the stands in that stadium. That's not what we wanted to do. It's what we had to do. But the grace and the methods by which they used this and did the work they did really turned out well. They want to use us as their home stadium in the future. Of course, all that is still to be negotiated one way or another. I will tell you that Mike Neal retired as our athletic director, and as of yesterday, promoted Steve Driggers to the interim athletic director for athletes. How many of you know that we have about 200 athletes on this campus that we would not have were it not for our athletic programs we started a few years ago? I'm very pleased with what they've done. We're getting better at what we do. But I'll tell you what, we're setting a mark out there that I think is really important. We've got to overhaul our website. It's stale. And we're going to make it better, make it more attractive and easier to navigate as we get into 2021. But I'm not going to do that until we finish our SAC COC movement. And that's the way that we'll make sure that we stay solid. Continuing to improve our communications both within and outside FTCC to include connecting with both potential and current students. And we're going to try to get better at stories. You folks are the ones that have the stories. Please tell us. I mean, you've got some of the most remarkable stories because you are closer to these students in many respects than we are. And Catherine and her team will go to you. But if they don't know what's going on out there, or your faculty, or your staff, or your situation, then if you will make sure that they know, we'll capture that and we'll honor it as it should be honored. Now, we're going to host a lot more events at Trojan Field. That gives us a venue we've never had before. We've got Marlena is coming up with one sometime this fall. We're going to have an outdoor movie out at Trojan Field. They're going to broadcast it over your radio, and thanks to her and others for putting that together. I think it'll be a popular event for our students and the faculty and staff. Old time movie. I guess they'll have food trucks out there and other things to keep us okay in terms of our food requirements and that kind of thing. But those are the things that can be fun. Foundation, Successful Giving Tuesday campaign, and May to benefit the Student Relief Fund. $18,000 received in donations. They were out of donations, I think, and we had an amount back there. I think $12,000, $13,000, whatever it was. That was out. I think that was gone in a number of hours or no more than 2 days. And the young man you saw in the video was one of those recipients. Trojan Strong, she did that. She, as a part of that campaign, created the yellow shirts with Trojan Strong on those. And by the way, on Tuesday, not the 17th, but on the 18th, I would ask everyone to wear your Trojan Strong t-shirt. As far as I'm concerned, you can wear your jeans too, as long as they're proper. But the point being is wear those shirts and celebrate who we are and what we're doing, because that's very important. We're in the midst of our campus campaign right now, but some people, the entire departments receive those shirts to the benefactors who were department heads and deans and so forth in those areas. I'm grateful to them. Our contractor, SMO, they bought their entire team these shirts. And so there are a lot of them around. And so I'd appreciate it. I'm going to wear one. And so I would appreciate it if you'd wear yours, showing support for not only these students, but for each other, because the truth of the matter is it all comes together. We had more than $32,000 in emergency assistance was distributed to FTC students in April and May. Some of those came from our own resources and exhausted that. What you contributed added to that. And so $32,000 to those students. And they, by the way, they vet these things. They don't just give it out and run, they vet them. And it saw a 35% overall in donations and 16% an increase in donors, despite having to cancel the fundraising activities we normally do. Raising money without regular fundraising events, that's some of the challenges they're going to face. They're going to need your help. If you're the beneficiaries, and I am the beneficiaries of, I don't get any salary from them, I'll be first to tell you that, but the students that we help come to this college, that's the students that pays our salaries. And so I would hope that you would help Sandy and the foundation there. They've got a great team over there. And I would hope that you would help them help you in doing the things that we do. Foundation staff and board of directors will continue to be diligent and creative to raise money and awareness. So there's a lot that has happened. You have navigated those waters very well. And quite frankly, I think it's a situation to where we need to do the things that we need to do so that we can continue on doing the great work at FTCC. You see, we want to be the foundation on which people that come after us, they stand. And they can look back on us someday and say to themselves, hey, I'm better off today because of the work they did back then. If we do that, then we have fulfilled our promise. And I think lastly, I'd like to say just thank you. And I hope you have a great year. I hope you have an enjoyable year. It's going to be different. It's going to be challenging. We don't know what the future holds, maybe even tomorrow. But the point being, we're going to adapt to it. We've always adapted and we've overcome. Now you stop and think about it. We've overcome hurricanes. We've overcome tornadoes. We've overcome ice and snowstorms. We've overcome trees down in every thoroughfare in our community. And we continue to make it. And that's what happens when you have resilient people with a proper purpose and doing the things that they're doing day in and day out. And so quite frankly, it's a situation where we need to continue to do that. This pandemic is going to come and go, but we have to be very careful and very have high expectations on what we're going to do and how we're going about doing our work. Stay in touch. Your official form of communication is email, and your leaders, to include deans, to include ASV, associate VPs, to include department heads and coordinators. But it's also your responsibility whenever, we have such an abundance of information that's available. You need to do your part as well. I get very discouraged when I hear that we've sent information back and out and not relying on a dean or a department head or something like that. And people say, well, I never heard. Well, it tells me that they're not doing their due diligence in going out and not relying on that department head, but also every person on this campus has an email, thing that no cost to them. And so they need to pay attention. And our leaders need to help remind them to pay attention. And then if they don't understand something, then it's our responsibility to help clarify it and correct it. So that's where we are. I wish for you a great year. We had a very good year under very trying circumstances last year. And I just want you to know I appreciate so much what each one of you have done. We've got a lot to do this year. And so I wish you well. And I look forward to seeing you again, if not tomorrow, certainly on Monday. God bless you and thank you.